Hey guys, in this podcast we talk about different health topics. As we are not medical experts, we'd ask for you to check with your doctor first before using any information provided in this podcast. Furthermore, we talk about third-party views in this podcast. Please know that we have no intention of misrepresenting these views, and we apologize in advance if we do so. Thanks.
I want to spill like a little secret of stuff I do, but people might think I'm kind of weird for this. But I think a lot of people do it; they just don't discuss it. But like, let's say like I know that someone like a lawn customer, like I'm going to meet a lawn customer to look at their lawn. Well, before I go, like it's important to me that like I get to know the person, understand them, and like build like that social bank account that we're talking about. Beforehand, if I just go without anything prepared, I have no control over the situation whatsoever. One of my mottos is like leave as little to luck as possible. Control as many variables as you can, so that the outcome, like I could go in there without anything prepared and it could go great.
Right.
Okay, but I want to increase the odds of it going great with a little bit of preparation.
And since you're prepared, you're more confident.
Yeah, so I don't go like memorizing like stories that I'm gonna tell and stuff or things like that, but I write down like maybe one word that is associated to a whole story that I can bring up, or like I think about like how I like introduce how I meet myself. Like we talked about like a handshake.
Yeah, in the previous
developing
podcast.
a handshake. Like I think about how I'm standing to like look the most, and I do everything. Like I mimic other people who are successful, and in doing so, I instill confidence because I know that is the best I could possibly be doing at the time.
Yeah, another thing too is when you prepare something, you feel like you're really doing your best, and because you feel like you're doing your best, you are more confident because you're like, well, this really is my best. A lot of people are like, I don't know if I'm actually trying my best, and as a result, I don't know if I'm gonna be confident because I don't know if I'm trying my best. So preparation really helps you in those two areas.
Yeah, and preparation it will really help if you make this paradigm change.
Yeah,
and it's the paradigm change that we need to focus on what we control and not on outcomes.
Yes.
When we're outcome dependent, then we allow ourselves to either be happy or sad based on the outcome of the situation. But we don't have any control over the outcome of the situation.
Right.
What we need to focus on is what we actually have control over. And in preparation, we can feel confident even if the whole thing blows up because we said we did everything that at that moment we had the information to do.
Yeah.
And so basically what I do is social situations that are uncomfortable. Like there's a lot of social situations that just carry with them more pressure, and it's common for people to be nervous in them. Like meeting new people is a common example. Jerry Seinfeld has this great stand-up bit on how like a date is like a job interview, except for at the end, both people might get naked. That's the only difference between them.
Yeah.
Like it's a high pressure situation where both people are evaluating each other, and in order to be confident in that situation, it's important to focus on what you have control over, and then assess your evaluation on the variables that you had control over. And then if something went bad, you say what was wrong with these variables I was controlling, not just be upset about the situation.
Gotcha. Okay.
So one of the problems with people who figure out that they can really change other people's perceptions of them just by manipulating their behavior a little bit is that they tend to become to sort of develop a social perfectionism problem where they believe that they can make every situation end up exactly as they want to, and whenever it doesn't happen that way, they get upset. And so what this leads to is a very low sense of self-esteem, because you're constantly worried that things will not end up the way that you want them to.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
And so this is where I think it's important to, first off, self-acceptance is very important in self-esteem, but it's important to recognize that certain situations are going to be more uncomfortable than others. And regardless of what you do, certain situations will turn out in an unfavorable way.
Right. Okay.
And so by understanding these two things, then if you do prepare, you can go into the situation very confidently.
Gotcha. Okay.
If that makes sense. So what I do for different social situations that are high pressure is that I develop systems for things. I do this for not only like social interactions, but for playing chess, for cutting lawns. I even have a system. Like for writing ebooks, I have a system for everything. For writing in general, I have a system. I systematically do everything. And these systems are there just to instill confidence in me.
Because you have a system, you know what you're doing, you have a direction.
You know what I know what I'm doing, and if something goes wrong, then I evaluate my system. I don't just say it went wrong. I say maybe there's something wrong with my system. So like in a social situation that maybe is uncomfortable, like name something.
Like if you're going to a party,
going to a party, like. And you don't know anyone or something, then I have a system. Like I have like funny jokes I say. Like I have jokes memorized and stuff that maybe like make people more comfortable. Like I'll like go up to someone and be like, do you know where the Bible study's at? Like no one here like got their Bibles. I mean that's really corny and stuff. But like you have stuff like that you say. Most of the time people find it funny.
Yeah,
it's so weird. Yeah. And it makes you feel comfortable because you are controlling as much as you can. So you do these things so that you feel more confident going into it. But ultimately, most of your confidence is going to come from the experience of doing it, and as you do it more and more, you'll get more confident. If you go up and approach random strangers over and over again, it's important to have things that push you out there to go, to have this system to get you out there and doing it, but then your confidence is really going to start developing as you're as you're doing this.
Okay, so I have a question. What about like confidence in terms of looks? Because I know that's a big topic.
Oh yeah. This is great that you brought this up. So a lot of people lack confidence in their appearance, and our society and societies around the world are very superficial about appearance. People assess people solely on their looks. Like a girl is attractive because she's good looking, or a girl is not attractive because. And fortunately for guys, oftentimes there's a lot more that goes into their appearance than just their looks.
Okay.
The thing that I've always heard is that there's two types of people that are generally confident on average.
Okay.
And those are really good looking people and people who are not good looking.
So, but the people in between is.
So the people in between often lack confidence in their appearance. So
Really?
let me explain that real quick. So why is the person who's really good looking confident? Well, they are so good looking that they know that no one's going to dislike them because of their looks.
Right. But I still have met people that are really good looking, but their personality is just terrible, and I just can't stand them because it's like how do I say it? It's like they feel like they should like be in like they should deserve like more respect than the average person because they're good looking, and I think that's actually a big turnoff for a lot of people.
So you're saying it's an arrogance thing,
Right.
Yeah. And this what you're describing here is a common problem that good-looking people have.
Okay.
Is that they feel sort of this ego confidence from being better. They say, I'm better looking than so and so. I'm better looking than so and so. Therefore, I am a better person in general. And they feel like this arrogance, cockiness,
Right.
and this is a turnoff to a lot of people.
Right.
So this is a problem that they struggle with. But the problem isn't, as I said, a confidence in their looks. They're confident in their looks, but maybe too confident. So this is a
Okay.
problem they run into. So why is the person then who's not good looking also confident?
Right.
Well, because they know that they're not good looking, and so they stop fixating on it. They stop assessing.
Oh. They don't value their confidence based on their looks because they're not good
Because
looking
they know
in the
they're
first
not.
place.
So they're like a person who's kind of in between. Well, after a situation, if it goes badly, they'll say, "Oh, so and so just doesn't like me because I'm not good looking. Like I wasn't good looking tonight, or I didn't have my hair this certain way. I wasn't wearing the right makeup tonight." And they'll base all these things off of variables that they don't have control over. While the person who's not good looking just is like, "I'm not good looking, so I need to develop these other characteristics so I can feel good about myself because of those."
Wow. So actually, not having good looks actually can help you
Yeah.
become more confident because you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, and the other thing that's really important to recognize is that there are advantages and disadvantages to being good looking and bad, and to both qualities. So a good looking person has many disadvantages. Like one you're saying is that they often feel like cocky because of this, because they feel like they have more value than other people because they're good
Right.
looking, and so that puts people off immediately. The other thing is that they intimidate people.
Yeah, that happens to me
because
all the time.
when you're around someone who's more attractive to you, two guys, like they're talking to a girl and a new, more attractive guy comes in, they feel threatened.
Yeah.
Or a girl likes a really attractive guy, but she thinks he's too good for her, that he has too many girls going after him, so she might not talk to him.
Right. Yeah. Well, one thing I think I said this on our podcast, but like one thing for me is if I approach someone who's like really into their looks, and you can tell based upon like their makeup, how their hair is done, all these different qualities that are time invested qualities. Like their teeth are like super white. It makes me so nervous. Like I'm thinking they are probably analyzing me head to toe and are just disgusted. Like So I agree with you. I get really intimidated and I try to like avert my eyes from them so that I don't see them looking at my face. Like I just don't want them. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
And then finally I try to stay away from them too, so they can't see
Yeah.
up close like my facial features.
Yeah, and so because of this problem, a lot of really good-looking people sort of have to develop like a warmness. They have to be overly warm towards people. Otherwise, they intimidate people from their good looks. They
Right.
intimidate both. And the other thing that's common, like for guys who are really good-looking, is that they get labeled as players a lot of times. So girls stay away from them. So they say like, "Oh, if you're going after me, then you must go after every girl." And you must have a lot of girls liking you, and there's not going to be a connection between us. It's just going to be like a fling or something.
Right.
So then at the same time, so we see there's some advantages. Like, yeah, a girl might see you and, spark up a conversation and stuff with you that maybe wouldn't if you weren't as good looking. You'll have people that like you just for your looks and stuff. But there's also disadvantages. And to say that one position is better than others, it might not be the case.
Right.
So someone who's not as good looking has some really strong strengths to them. Like, one, they're disarming. They're not intimidating. You don't, like, when someone who's not as good looking comes up to you, is in a social situation, no one is intimidated. Everyone just feels, and so people open up a lot more to them. They can have really good social connections off the bat because no one's intimidated by them, and no one's trying to, constantly make themselves appear good to them.
Wow, that's so true. Like, one thing I gotta say is, I've worked a little bit both in the research environment and like the hospital environment, and at least I've experience in both of them. And then I gotta tell you though, like the research environment is definitely not a beauty contest. Like the people there just show up with like the worst clothes you've ever seen matched together. Makeup is like optional, and the thing is that because that looks are not really evaluated at all. like they don't waste their time with it. Like they don't ever have to worry about if they look good or not, or like prepare really well in the morning. And, like if you're like if you shave or don't shave, like it's fine. Like you know what I mean. And I feel like with that being said, they're able to devote more time to what they actually want to do. Whereas I feel like in the hospital setting, especially like dealing with patients, it seems like it's always like a competition there. It's always like the nurses are always competing for the like docs, you know. So I just find that interesting. That if you're not good looking in the first place, it might be to your advantage to not. You don't even waste your time with that. You're like focusing on these all these other skills.
On develop, and that's why like the common stereotype is that like guys who aren't as good looking develop like really great social skills that make them just as attractive as those really good looking guys.
Wow. Okay.
And that's like oftentimes a really good looking guy gets enough success just from being himself that he doesn't feel the need to change that much. Yet you have these guys who aren't as good looking getting way more success and being way more popular and stuff because they're forced to change these things. And while they're evaluating how they're doing, they're not saying like it's my looks that's doing this.
Right.
And they develop something. And at the end of the day, I think that being good looking is worse than being like either average looking or bad.
Really?
Because it forces you.
Well, unfortunately for you, that's the case.
It's where they look good.
Right.
And so appearance is a very short-lasting thing. So we're going through like from your 20s to 30s, you're going through like your prime appearance time. And so the guys who aren't as good looking during this time, go out and they develop these skill sets that
because they have to compensate.
They have to compensate, and they have to, as they're developing these skill sets that do not go away with age.
Oh, okay. And
they don't wither away.
So when the person who was good looking had the advantage or had a handicap really, and they suddenly are like kind of robbed of their looks, they're left with less. They have to figure out a way to develop this big gap that the handicap of having a good look that gave them.
And so what you see in life is that oftentimes, while one group is benefiting, another group is getting ready to benefit. So like in high school, there's the cool kids, they're getting all the girls, and they don't do any work in school, and they're living their life, and it's all great and stuff. Meanwhile, you have like the nerdy kids who are not getting anything at the time, but they're developing a skill set that'll eventually become valuable, and then later on they're gonna shine. So it often like people like peak at different times based on what they're working on and stuff. And so the guy who's at a disadvantage to begin with. Now I do want to discuss why being a disadvantage to begin with can be bad just forever. But sometimes the guy who's disadvantaged at the beginning turns out a lot better because when they don't have to worry about their appearance fleeting, like the people who get their value from like women have a big problem with this because a lot of them get their value from their appearance and their looks. Like people, guys flirt with them everywhere they go and stuff. But then when they lose that, all that attention is gone, and it's a very depressing thing that most women have to go through. So when you have the advantage, in some sense you have an advantage when you get used to that sooner and then develop those other qualities, because then you don't hurt as bad when looks fleet. And that's why your confidence in your look, this is how you develop confidence in your looks, is you accept your advantages and disadvantages, and then you play the game accordingly.
Gotcha.
You compensate where necessary, and you don't fixate on it. But where having bad looks can really hurt you is when, as a child, you hit adolescence. Like the nerd who hits adolescence, he's not getting many girls, he's like not that attractive and stuff, may develop a lot of really bad habits as a result with people. Very low self-confidence habits, like perpetuated thoughts that no one will like them, that all people care about is looks. And so instead of of blooming later on because of this work that they do or like developing their social skills, they just forever hate themselves. And that's a common thing too. I think it's just important to recognize that you can be proactive here. You can either let your life go out as it's meant to be with the same habits you developed when you're younger, or you can stop, assess all of your thoughts and your beliefs, and go out and gain real experience in the world.
And the thing is, a lot of people are afraid to do this because a lot of people are afraid to insult their own selves. Like every night, what I try to do for 5 minutes is I try to say, Nick, what were the worst things that you did today? And it's really hard to do that because you're not made through evolution. You're not supposed to concentrate on your bad sides. You're supposed to exaggerate your good sides. And so if you focus on your bad sides for just even 5 minutes, you can realize and understand where you can improve yourself. And the fact that you know that you're improving yourself also instills confidence.
And the other thing that you're kind of getting at, but not saying directly, is that self-acceptance is a huge part of being able to make these changes. So if you're kind of a loser in high school and stuff, but you don't recognize that and don't accept that, then you'll probably continue to be a loser because you just keep thinking that your behavior is okay as it is. But sort of it's very challenging to do, and I've had to do it with many things, and what often results is feeling depressed for a week or two, feeling terrible about yourself. But it's important to do it, but to evaluate yourself as objectively as possible. So if I was another person, how would I evaluate this person, and then making changes accordingly.
And the best feedback you can get, honestly, is when people insult you. Because a big thing is when people insult you, your immediate reaction is to defend yourself. You might say Nick, you always show up late to everything, and I may be like, well, no, honestly it's just because I live farther away, or well, it's just because I'm really busy, and I just
late thing seems to be a theme.
I know. But the whole thing is that the whole thing is that if you were to stop for a moment and just think to yourself, I actually am late a lot, and honestly, if I just left earlier, I would be early, and if I was early, it would only help me. So yeah, thanks, Paul. You're right, I am late a lot of times, so that's not going to happen anymore. I'm going to work on that. And just all these little small things add up to a huge result, and you just constantly improve your personality. People love it when you can actually, for a minute, set aside your pride and listen to them. I think the biggest turnoff when people are trying to give you advice is when you just defend against the advice.
Yes, and this is also why bullying can work, because you don't want to believe what they're saying might be true.
Right.
And what they're saying might not be true, but oftentimes you're sensitive about things that you fear could be true.
Okay.
So someone says that you're not funny, and they make fun of you, like, that joke was so stupid, you're not funny. You tend to deny that, but if you have the self-acceptance to say, like, okay, that joke wasn't funny,
and how can I
but
make
still
it better?
maintain that's where self-esteem versus ego confidence really comes into play. Like,
Yeah.
you can still feel okay about yourself even when you do stuff wrong,
Right.
even when you mess up, because you have that inherent value. But like, I think that, like, you never will get bullied if you are a self-accepting person. Like, I remember when I transitioned from high school to college, I went through a period of, like, feeling really depressed because I read a book on self-analysis, and it made me I had a lot of epiphanies and insights into who I was. I looked back at myself and said, like, Paul, you're not good at this. You're not, like, good with, like, people. You're getting nervous all the time. You're, like, all these things I looked at, and it made me very depressed looking at it. But now it's like, if someone makes fun of me for that stuff, it's like, I'm just like, you're right.
Yeah.
But there's a quote that you can't change until you accept how things are, because before you accept that, there's nothing that you can change, because you're just continuing this wrong. But once you accept what's wrong, this is what you hear in Alcoholics Anonymous. You cannot not become an alcoholic until you accept that you are an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Before you can make the changes necessary. And so self-acceptance plays a big role in confidence. And I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So that kind of concludes most of what I want to say on confidence. But just to highlight the main points, there's two types of confidence. One is based on self-esteem, where we're just okay with ourselves regardless of the external world and what's happening.
Self-acceptance. Yeah.
Another confidence comes from experience, from judging and comparing ourselves to other people, and this confidence leaves us. We can't forever be confident because we don't always win. There's times when we do poorly, our looks go away, and so basing our self-worth and confidence on the external world is just a terrible thing to do, because there's no reason to do it. Like, when we can base our confidence off of intrinsic things, then we benefit regardless of whether those intrinsic things are true or not.
Right,
okay?
right.
So there's that. And then the other thing I say is that in order to be confident in a situation, ultimately you just need experience in the situation. The problem that most of us fall into is that because we're not confident, we don't do something. But the reason why we're not confident is because we didn't do it. So we need anything that you're not confident that you need to get yourself to do. And the way you're going to motivate yourself to do it is being confident going into the situation. Like I just call it like pre-gaming, but not like with alcohol. But you pre-game by creating systems and knowing what you can do, and then doing it to your best performance.
Gotcha.
And then you base your confidence on what you had control over, not the outcomes. So you had control over what discussions you would bring up, what stories you would tell, your body language and things like that. And so you don't evaluate on the end thing, you evaluate on what you had control over and where you messed up, because you can't make a situation perfect until you first mess up and learn where you mess up.
Yeah, right.
So that kind of covers it all. I hope you guys learned from this. And at the end of the day, confidence is something that is built up over time.
And as like a little tad bit I just want to throw on the side is one thing that you can do to help somebody who is not very confident is to simply compliment them genuinely. I just know from the side, like probably like, hey Nick, I actually learned a lot from that podcast. You seem like you know a lot about electricity or something, And those compliments instill in me confidence that I actually do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And as a person, you often hear that people who are insecure are bullies and stuff.
Yeah.
When you're really secure and you have a lot of self-esteem, you don't feel the need to tear other people down. Just tearing people down is ultimately just to put yourself up. We have equal ground. When you insult someone, they go down to social environments and to yourself. But when you say something positive, both go up. And so someone who's really confident seeks to make other people's lives better and make other people more confident. So be someone who is encouraging, not someone who gains social acceptance through destroying other people.
Yeah. Right.
And the last thing I want to say, like I was trying to mention this before, but like confidence is something that's built up over time. There's this great analogy of a bamboo tree. Basically, the bamboo tree builds its root system for years. It builds its root system for years, and you don't see anything.
Underground.
Nothing comes from it.
It's all underground.
It's all underground, so no one can see anything. But then one year it just shoots up, and suddenly there's something to see. And this is the way I think confidence is it takes years and years to build core confidence in all situations, so you feel, and developing a strong self-esteem. And the results are not noticeable right away, but through a long period of time, as you build this like root system, one day it will all benefit you. One day all these things will eventually click, and this is true in a lot of things. In almost any activity that you attempt to get better at, this is the case.
Wow, that's
so.
All right, well, guys, thanks for listening. No, we covered a lot of material. If you have any questions, let us know. If you want to, like, comment, subscribe. But thanks. Appreciate it.
Confidently like it.
Confidently, yeah. All right. We'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks.